Welcome to Draw This. In this episode, I'm going to draw a pear. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll be using Corel Painter 2015 today. I'm going to create a sketch with the detail oils brush on a new layer. Then I'll dim the opacity of that sketch and create a few blank layers. I'll fill those layers with the scratchboard tool and then smooth out the edges with the pinch brush. Next, I'm going to go ahead and draw in the stem with the scratchboard tool, pull it into shape with Distorto. Then I'll go ahead and group all of these pear layers together so that I can move and transform them. I might enlarge the pear and center it better. Then I'll blend all of the edges with the diffuse blur blender. I'll turn on preserve transparency and fill each layer with a more appropriate color, and then I'll use the airbrush to go ahead and shade. I'm going to use a cooler green on the shadow side and a more yellow green on the highlight side. Shading along the edge of the layer helps it look more curved. And then I'm going to use the coarse oily blender with a paper texture to go ahead and blend this up and make it look a little more lumpy. I'm going to use the diffuse blur to soften a little bit of that texture. Then I'm going to shade the stem with the airbrush. I'm going to add some details to the stem where it meets the pear and just kind of add a little bit of brown to that and a little bit of dark color. That'll help it look sunken in. I'm going to right click on the stem and choose select layer content. And then I'm going to create a new layer and use the Relief Blobs Image Hose brush to add a lumpy texture on an overlay layer. I'm going to add a new multiply layer and add some sponge texture. I'll add another new layer and add some texture with the pepper spray brush and build up the feature gradually. This gives the pear a nice speckled pattern. Now we want to add a little more environment reflection from this white background onto the pear to make it look shiny. I'm going to use select layer content on the pear to add a little bit of color shift in a few spots using the chalk brush and the organismal polypay wool texture. I'll blend that a little bit with the coarse oily blender, and then I'll roughen the edges of the stem with a Distorto. Let's add some little water drops now. So I'm just going to paint those in with the scratchboard tool first. I'm going to turn preserve transparency on and add some shadow at the top along with a highlight. I'll add a little bit of reflections on these drops with the detail oils brush and add a little bit of cast shadow underneath. I have a tutorial on how to paint these drops if you want to watch that. Next, I'm going to add a ground shadow on a multiply layer underneath the pear, and I'll use the airbrush and then blend that a little bit with diffuse blur. I'm going to choose select layer content on the pear layer and add a little bit more color glazing with a yellow color. Then I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate those drops and modify them to add a few more drops to the pear. And then just so it's not a repetitive pattern, we'll move a few of these drops around and reshape a few of them with a Distorto brush and maybe even erase a couple. Let's create more specks with that pepper brush with maybe a few more bigger specks towards the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and save this and then drop all layers. And then I'm going to blend with the coarse oily blender. I'll add a little edge shading with the detail oils brush on a multiply layer. I'm going to drop all layers and then use a couple of overlay layers to go ahead and add some blue on the shadow side and some yellow on the highlight side. Then I'm going to go ahead and save, drop all again, and flip this horizontally. I might skew it a little bit with free transform to fix it and make it a little less lopsided. Then I'm going to add a 50% gray layer set to overlay. That'll let me add some canvas texture on a layer above all the other layers. I'll mask away some of that texture with the sponge, and then add one more layer of a different texture and mask away some of that as well. Next, I'm going to add a multiply layer with a little bit of tone to tone the canvas, and we have a completed pear. If you enjoyed this episode of Draw This, take a quick second to like this video and share it with your friends. And if you're new to my channel, you can click that subscribe button to get updates when I release new videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Tuesday for another episode of Draw This.